The third concept in the 10 concepts of the therapeutic community is practicing social learning. Karen, could you describe to me what that means?
I love this one. I have a special place for social learning when we talk about this, because I have a little pet peeve. Every time we have a graduation, you always get this one client that gets up there and, we're asking him, what did you learn in the TC? And he talks about how he learned tolerance. Like, in other words, he learned how to put up with everybody around him, But it's hysterical, because they really learn, they learn tolerance. They absolutely do. But they learn who they're going to tolerate, who's going to tolerate them. They learn what behaviors work, what behaviors don't work, because they realize it or not, they're interacting all the time, whether they're standing online in the chow hall, they're standing out on a count line, they're sitting in group together, they're in the same dorms together. They have to talk to one another. And you can hear all of this chatter that goes on, that, who's not liking this person and who's really kind of connected with that person. And so they kind of get to learn what it is that attracts them to another person and what doesn't. And they kind of get to learn what they do that turns people away and what doesn't. So the social learning is something that's a constant within the community. And I love it, because at the end of it all, they learn these tremendous lessons. It's really what helps to mold and shape them as they work their way through the community. And at the end of it all, they say tolerance.
Often when we talk about learning, we have to consider the fact that we have to unlearn some things.
Yeah.
Charles, how does that work in a therapeutic community?
Well, in the TC community, you look at learning, and learning in an environment with other people, you begin to take on the habits of that community. The community have certain norms that they would tolerate and certain norms that they don't tolerate. And so if you look at a community itself, people tend to go along with what the majority is. And the majority of the people are living productive lives. And this is a community. It's not just one person as a role model, but this is a group of role models that's focusing on the right behaviors and doing the right things. And so you have a tendency to fall in line, because there's a certain amount of peer pressure when you're talking about numbers. You got a number of people saying the same thing, and the more people are speaking into your life, telling you that you need to change and to make some changes in your life, or you need to do this way, and the more you see other people doing it, it helps you fall in line as pretty much as a social being, the tolerance, as Karen said, tolerating others' behavior. One of the things I often say that if you tolerate me, then I can tolerate you. And that you learn that we all have weaknesses, and we have strength, and we have weaknesses. And so we have to learn to live with each other's strength, and we have to live with each other's weaknesses. And we have to tolerate those behaviors that others display. The other thing is that looking at the 12-step groups, AA, the success of the 12-step groups, the AA and NA, is the social interaction. You realize that you're not alone, and that other people have the same issues and the same focuses and the same problems. However, they're telling you their story because you can listen to their story, and perhaps maybe enough people saying the same thing, maybe this can work for me, and maybe I can change as a result of all of my peers who are having some of the same difficulties and the same problems. They can change too, and they're changing their life with the social interaction with one another.
I remember in grammar school, there used to be a little check mark on my grade card that said plays well with others.
Yeah.
And then later on it was works well with others.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yes. But what they also learn too, I don't want to leave this piece out, is that together, socially, that's where the power lies, and that they can accomplish whatever they need to. They can make the changes that they need to. They can feel safe within each other to move forward. And it's just an overwhelmingly powerful experience for a lot of them, because they're learning for the first time that somebody else actually is like them or cares about them, or that they actually care about somebody else. And I hear this so often, and it really touches my heart, because so many of our clients come in so incredibly disconnected that they never thought that anybody would just take that minute and really care about them. And I remember one day I was walking down the path in front of the center, and this one guy was with a volleyball trying to get some stuff out of the shed, and he had all this stuff in his hands, and the volleyball just like got loose from under his arm and it just went out. And I was talking to this other client, and he's standing there, and I see him see it out of the corner of his eye that this other client was struggling, you know. And I was so curious to see what he was going to do about it. And he turned around and he said, "Excuse me, Miss Karen, I got to go and help him out." So I waited for him. He came back and he says, "You know, I do that today." And I says, "You know, good for you. You got some character. I really respect that."
Now let's talk about the work release, the clients that are coming from the institution. And speaking of social learning, I would be probably amiss if I didn't give you the other side of that. In the institution setting, we have our inmates coming from the institution, and it's pretty much contrary to the way that we are trying to teach them to change their life, because they are in a culture per se. And I think Karen started out by saying the therapeutic community is a culture. Well, the institution is a culture, and this part of the social learning in that environment is predicated on you keep everything in front of you, and maybe have one or two people that you let, and they only just to watch your back, but you keep everybody in front of you, and you don't tell on anybody, you don't talk about anybody in a negative way unless you're ready to go down and fight. You don't steal from each other. So they have these certain rules and structure and behaviors that has to be abided by, or else you won't be able to make it in that environment. So the social learning is what makes them get more involved in the institutional living, what I call being institutionalized, because it's a form of social learning. In the community that we bring them into is different. So naturally there's a resistance of coming in. They have this thing is that, why do I have to confront another peer? When before you just kind of turn your head when something was going awry in the community or in the institution. You never confront it, you just kind of turn your head. Where now we're insisting on, as a part of the culture of this environment, that you have to be more aware of what's going on around you, and you have to act differently when it comes to confronting those situations.
So social learning has been going on in their lives, all of their lives. You're just helping them, like in positive role modeling and other things, make better decisions about which kind of learning they should apply themselves to. Is that right?
Right. We're introducing them to a different environment. We talked about it initially, that a therapeutic community is a lifestyle. It's not just this, it's a lifestyle, changing the way you conduct yourself in life. And so as they conduct themselves differently, they'll no longer have the desire to conduct business the same way they did when they was in the institution. Where in the institution, it was as a matter of safety and a matter of security for them. And now we're telling them that this environment is a lot different. You don't have to worry about your safety in this environment. Safety is one of our number one objectives. We don't allow any intimidation in this social environment, very much like they would have in the institutional environment. So the whole mindset, the thinking is different. The belief system, we have what we call a belief system, which we would talk about a little later on as one of the concepts. But the belief system is predicated on the rules and what we believe to be true about people as they make these changes in their life. These are good, positive way of looking at life, the rules of life, instead of being a person who is that violate these rules of life, but they call a convict, changing to see life differently than they should.
So it's fair to say then that some type of social learning that went on in a ghetto environment, one of these high rises that we often see that the government has produced, it's legitimate in that they had to do certain things to survive and to get by and move ahead. And what you're saying to them now is, don't go back to that environment, move forward and change your behaviors and attitudes and thinking to live in this new environment. Is that
right? It's a culture that they lived in previously to come in. We all go back to what we are comfortable with. We'll state a reference. Our reference before we came into this environment is probably what we're going to deviate back to in a therapeutic community. So we have to be very conscious of that as therapists. We have to be very conscious of where our clients and the inmates where they come from. And sometimes they're coming to you directly from the institution or the prison. We have to be aware of that because we understand the culture and the traditions that is associated with that living style of living.
Well, Karen, what kind of signals or indicators are you looking for as you observe the inmates interact with each other to show you that they may be drifting back to the old social learning as opposed to moving forward into the new social learning?
Well, we have a perfect example that we were just talking about a little earlier. A lot of what they learn in these other environments are for the wrong reasons, but they are skills. So what we try to do is look at these skills that they were using in a negative way before and help them to maybe put them to more positive use in the therapeutic community. So a lot of the inmates that had were really good leadership skills. You know, they're the ones that we kind of look for to put them on the board, to get them to really put them in these positions of leadership and now utilize that in a really positive way to show that they can do something different with the very same skills that they have. So I was talking to Charlie earlier because we have this one client who's he's one of these guys that he's very outgoing and he's slightly intimidating with the other clients. So he has the potential to take on a strong leadership role or take on a very negative role in the community. So we have to really watch him. And it was brought to our attention that he's trying to do some jailhouse lawyering within the community. So what we're trying to do is to come up with some strategies to help him to take that very energy and maybe write some seminars for the community and present it in a different way, take charge of a positive project, so that we can not only help him through doing an assignment like this, show him that he can direct this, but also help the community because he's very smart and he's talented, and these skills can be really put to better use.
Yeah, see, what we have here is that we have a community of social people that's in this social environment, and they have various skills, but generally they have used these skills and abilities in negative ways. And so now we're teaching them how to utilize these skills in a more positive way. I remember a young kid came in a DR hearing, which is a write-up, that we were discussing options on how he could change his behavior, and come to find out as one of his abilities that he was a rapper. And so I was going to give him a seminar to write, and so something hit me and said, well, why don't you do this and do it in rap and organize 2 or 3 other your peers, and then y'all write this rap and do this seminar in rap, and I want you to present it to the entire community at the house meeting on Monday, next Monday. And he did. It was such a beautiful presentation where he did this rap where he was just rapping this thing, and the whole community stopped shaking their head and getting involved in the rap and the singing. And I think that as a result of that, utilizing his abilities, helped the entire community understand that this particular infraction that they was addressing was that this was not good, and the whole community learned from his mistake, and basically it was a kind of a unique thing. That's a perfect example of a social interaction, of social learning, where one person utilizing his skills or her skills to address and to help other members of the community to be more positive and outgoing.